Hey guys, welcome back to MuscleMentor.net. I'm Brad Hall, and this is Justin Harris, and we're going to talk a little bit today about for a contest, you want to focus on being dry and not as much on being full. So more focus on being dry than being full. So Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's the problem is, everyone gets into bodybuilding because they want to build muscle, and then they see pro bodybuilders and see how big they are, and they think that they think Big Ramy is 175 pounds until he starts carving up, and then he turns into Big Ramy, and so that's what everyone wants. They want that feeling of being full, and they think they're going to look bigger because they feel bigger, or whatever clothes they brought to the contest feel tighter. But that's not how contest bodybuilding works. Contest bodybuilding, you look bigger when you're shredded and when you're dry. And unless you're dry, the fullness really doesn't matter. It really needs to be dryness, leanness, dryness first. And if you're lean and dry, fullness is a nice addition on top of it. But but full without the dryness is never ever a good look. That just looks fat on stage.
Especially under those lights, because how bright
Oh yeah,
you have the least bit of spillover, the least bit of water, and you'll look incredibly small, like compared to just if you were drier, how much bigger you
yeah,
look
oh
on
yeah.
stage.
Well, and you can find pictures online, thousands of them, of guys on stage who aren't in shape,
Hmm.
who look small. They look ridiculous. They don't even look like bodybuilders. But if you ask their body weight, they might be the heaviest guy on stage. That's just not how. And I can think of certain examples throughout the years, and a really good example that I always thought was Chris Cook. If anyone remembers him when he turned pro, it's probably 2006. He had won the Mr. USA like 3 years in a row, but back then only the top two people in the finals, the overall winner and one other person turned pro, and he won, I think, the USA super heavyweight twice and nationals once before he finally turned pro. And when he finally turned pro, I'm pretty sure he was the lightest he ever was, but he was definitely the flattest he ever was. But the reason he finally turned pro is because that was the one time he finally got dry on stage, and he wasn't full, he was flat, and you could see compared to previous times he was flat, but he was finally dry, and that's really and I deal with this with final week preps all the time is because mentally you want to feel big.
Right.
But the difference but on stage, when you feel big, you generally don't look big on stage. You look big on stage when you are shredded and there's no water under the
Right.
skin.
Yeah, your normal clothes that you wear to the gym that are tight usually should be draping on you and
Yeah,
looking like you're wearing a set of curtains.
yeah. It's
Usually.
called. I mean, yeah. That's the hardest thing to convince people of because in their mind, when they're full, they feel good and they feel big and they convince them. And so much of how you perceive yourself in the mirror is mental also. And so
Right.
when you're full and your clothes are tight, you look in the mirror and you think you look big, especially if you see some veins. And you should have some vascularity. If you have zero vascularity on stage, you're probably too depleted and too dehydrated. But you're not going to have big, huge. Most people aren't going to have crazy bulging veins because when all that fluid is in the veins, it's very close to being leaked back out under the skin and looking watery. So that's the biggest thing I think with people is trying to get them to remember that. And the guys who do understand that really early on tend to be the ones who progress fastest in bodybuilding.
Right.
There's kind of one caveat to that I want to say is that sometimes the really big guys can look worse if they're too flat, but that's only because they're so big. And I'm not speaking to 99.9% of bodybuilders. I'm talking to the guys who are 250, 260 pounds plus on stage.
Right.
Someone like that, someone like a Jay Cutler, if he's too flat, it's noticeable. But that's because too flat for him could be 20 pounds of fullness.
Right.
For your typical middleweight, 2 pound, too much flatness is 2 to 3 pounds and so that's not going to be a difference. Of how you look on stage. For 99.9% of competitors, dryness first. If you're full, great, you nailed it. But if you're not dry, you're not winning the show.
Yeah. So don't freak out during that final week and do anything super drastic to try and be because you feel like you're too small. It's just
Hmm.
that's the best part about having a coach or someone in your corner to just go no, don't do that. You're fine. It's fine that your clothes are baggy. You can
Yeah.
yell at me afterwards, but just stick with it.
And it's not a knowledge. It's not really even a knowledge thing. It's a mind
It's a mind
thing.
fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're anyone who even coaches people goes through that same issue,
Yep.
that same thing. And I work with lots of coaches, and I work with coaches when I do shows, and Brad can attend to the fact that I panic just like everyone else does those final days.
It's all good. I think it's equally shared among anyone who's ever stepped on stage is realizing that last 3 days that you're like trying to convince yourself that you can pack in about a year's worth of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last 3 days, and it starts to make sense if you're only talking to yourself.
Yeah. Especially when you're tired and drained and depleted.
Not making any sense anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.